Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thank you very much for the generous support and the lots of views on my new series called The Amateur's Mind. I've really enjoyed watching those numbers going up, and I thought that would be a successful series, and or at least that it would start off as a successful series, and that was the case. Thank you very much for those people who donated between that video we are now obviously expressing their appreciation for that series, and also thank you all of my Patreon supporters as well. So today we are going to continue The Amateur's Mind, and I picked a game at total random from lichess. And because of I did that and I didn't ask either of the players if they were okay with me making a video out of it. Not that I need to technically, because chess games can't be copyrighted, so technically I don't need to ask any permission whatsoever, but I like to be the nice guy. So instead of me revealing who they are, I put my beautiful face on the top left of the screen so that it covers out the names of the players, because what interests us is not so much about who is playing it, but what was played and how. A really fascinating game, so I hope that we will learn a fair bit from it. The opening is the first thing that I would like to mention. E3 is not a very bad move, but definitely one that is very unambitious and doesn't give any advantage to white whatsoever, and as such I would never ever teach an opening like this to my students. But this is an important point, because the more I coach online people who don't really have much time for chess, rather than, you know, once a week a lesson and then maybe an odd game here and there are two different approaches in coaching, and whilst I'm only following one, I have to give due recognition to the other. When you are coaching somebody, you can have two goals. Number one, to make them become a better player. Number two, to make them win more games. And funnily enough, they are not the same, because if I wanted my students to win more games, then I would sort of organize my coaching into a far more short-term way and teach openings that can be learned in half a day opposed to half a year, which is what I'm doing. And yeah, I would adjust a lot of things for the immediate gains. The problem is that when you do that, in the short run, your students will improve, in fact sometimes quite rapidly. But then they are going to hit a plateau, and that's the point when you have to then shift the mindset onto what I do from the get-go, and then it's quite often you find that more time consuming, harder to then get through with it, because by then your students got used to easy and quick successes, and then all of a sudden they got to a level where they get beaten now all the time and they don't understand why, and so on. So the bottom line is that I believe in teaching complex openings, and in fact, not that I believe in it, I know for a fact that that's the way to go. But once again, there is time and space in the world for openings like this for people who, as I said, don't really want to get better at chess but want to be more successful. Then this is a fair path. So let's see what it turned out to be. Black responded very poorly with e6, knight f6 followed by bishop out, and then e6 would have been way more ambitious. And again, it's basic chess principles. This is not covering the center, it's blocking the bishop in, ugly move. e6, same, bishop d3, knight f6, knight d2, knight d7. Now, once again, it's very interesting that very often you find that club players play moves like this because they saw other people doing it. And if at this point in time I asked the black player, why did you put this knight on d7, I can guarantee you that they couldn't explain it other than, well, I don't know, it just looked normal. People do that all the time. Yes and no. People do it all the time in totally different openings, in totally different structures, for reasons. What is the reason why we are putting this knight here? None whatsoever. It doesn't belong here, it blocks the bishop in, it controls far fewer squares than it would from c6, and just overall, it's a passive spot. And after f4, as per played in the game, or even after knight f3, this just doesn't look right at all. What's the correct move here? c5, and then putting the knight onto c6, because from here I cover both of these very important, central squares. So knight d7, whilst technically copying the pattern of the white knight, appears to be just as even Steven. It is a very very poor choice. And funny enough, white's knight d2 makes a fair bit more sense, but I will talk about that in a second. So knight d7 f4. So now we understand that this whole setup that white is playing, that was the reason why they played e3 already from the get-go, because they wanted to go for this reverse stone wall setup, where the pawns are normally like this, and then white plants a knight. Oh, I'm struggling today with my rows. Plants a knight on e5, castles short, and normally launches a kingside attack. And here is the problem with this system. The benefits are the problems at the same time. I can teach you how to play this in 10 minutes. No worries. I kid you not. 10 minutes, I can tell you everything you need to know about this structure, and I can guarantee you that if you are, let's say, 1600, you are very quickly going to go up in your rating, because you will know what to do, what to look out for, and you're done and set. The problem is that when you get a little bit higher, and you're going to meet players who actually know how to move chess pieces around and justify at least half of their moves, you will struggle, because this structure is not designed to give you any advantage. This structure is designed to give you something that you can use for the rest of your life anytime you sit down behind the chessboard. So that's the benefits, and that's the disadvantages. Alright, now let's break it down move by move. Anytime you see this, the first impression is that it's rubbish, the second is that it's a total disaster, and the third one is that why on earth would you go there? Okay, so the bunny ears are almost always rubbish moves. Very, very few exceptions. Very sadly, I did play one of these in one of my previous videos, but at least I could explain my thought process, and I'm still not sure if it was sound or not, but I think it actually was. But for the life of me, it is an unexplainable, horrendous, total, complete lemon. Why would you do that? Like, it's an opening. You need to do two things. It's so simple. Control the middle of the board and get your dudes out. Which one is this doing? Like, this bishop is at home. It needs to get out. We need to castle. We need to attack the center. And we need to develop this bishop. This is the easiest part of the game, because you don't need to think. You just follow this basic rule of chess of center, get your dudes out. And more often than not, when you get your dudes out, they happen to control the center, so actually you can merge the two into one. A6. Holy cow. And then white putting the icing on the cake by stopping b5, as if that was a semi-meaningful move, instead of playing the fully correct knight f3. I mean, I don't know why black played a6 in the first place, whether it was to stop bishop b5, which was never ever going to come, or whether to play b5, which is not really the right time to do this. I don't know, but it definitely didn't need to be stopped. It was stopped anyway, but that's a new story. c5, hallelujah, finally a correct move. c3, so now we are in this stonewall structure that I mentioned before. Bishop e7. This is a bit passive for my liking. I would much rather go to d6, but it's okay, because at least it's developing. Knight f3, castles, no worries. Knight e5, very logical. As I said, this is what white does. Chuck a knight in here, castle here, queen out, g4, g5, and hack like there was no tomorrow. It's a very easy system to learn, it's very easy to play, and in the short term I guarantee you will be very successful with it. Okay, black took on d4, and this is normally a moment where I give a ton of grief to my students for doing this, and they keep on doing it all the time. This is a horrendous move, and people never understand why. And even when I explain it, it seems to me that it just didn't register what I said. So once again, let's have a look. What happens here really? We take on d4, they take back. First and foremost, if we ask black what the point of this swap is, the answer will be, And that's a very good answer, because nothing else makes sense. So as soon as I start to formulate sensible words and sentences, I'm going to talk some total rubbish, because it's unexplainable why you would take here. It's not hanging, it's guarded. No need to take. And in fact, then one might ask, yeah, but what's the big deal about it? Well, the big deal about it is that we swap this pawn off for this one. And when I say it, normally 5 people out of 10 don't understand it at all. Because they think that when they take here, they swap this pawn off for that one. not the case. If that were to happen, that means that these two were actually gone from the board, so it would look like this pawn would be back here and there was nothing here, but in reality what happens is that I'm swapping that for that. Look at the position now and look at the position now. What is missing? Central for a non-central. Yeah? That's a very big deal. Number two, by doing this swap, the bishop's diagonal has been extended. Another biggie. Yes, so did this one. K-factor about this bishop? Nil. The fact that this bishop is now controlling more squares, however, is going to be relevant because it's already crystal clear that white's kingside attack is going to hit way sooner than the other. So, whenever you are about to play a rubbish move like this, just ask yourself, what am I going to do after that? And exclusively, 100 times out of 100, just play that move instead of taking. The only time when you take this is when you have a crystal clear gain out of this swap. Let's see what black gained from it. Takes, queen c7. Right. No gains whatsoever. We gave up our central pawn for a total rubbish pawn there. No go. Okay, moving on. g4. This is a bit too hasty for my liking because black has a very passive setup, so there is no reason for white not to just play normal stock standard chess, play castles, I don't know, play maybe rook b8, queen f3, b5. I'm playing now. I'm trying to make sense of black's moves. It's quite a task. And then just queen h3 or g4 right away. Let's say I go b4, g4. And now white is threatening to win the game with g5 and then mate down here, which is rather awkward to spot. Not to spot, it's very easy to spot, it's very awkward to stop. So that would have been a somewhat more natural way to continue the game, but white decided to throw in the kitchen and the sink and went with g4. And normally this is the point where the players on the black side would go like, oh my god, I'm getting attacked. And from here on, nothing sensible goes through here. It's just panic, 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 and oh my god, what's gonna happen? I'm getting mated. Whereas the reality of the thing is that white is launching an attack with the king stuck in the middle and not, or I should rather say, half-developed army. And the only reason why he gets away with it and doesn't die right now is because he has got a very firm control of the center. That's it. That's the only reason why white gets away with it. Otherwise, it would be a colossal disaster. Now, my favorite move for black here would be, once I ruled out the tactical possibilities, probably to drop back. And I would like to mention that I hate with a passion going backwards. But I'm already taking the sting out of g5. I'm already ready to regroup the knight to d6 from where I'm controlling a lot of important squares. And I'm also getting ready to kick this knight out from e5 by playing f6. Yeah, so if they play g5, I'm not going to do that because then that would open up files and diagonals in front of my king. In that case, I'm playing knight d6 and ready to get to jump in there. Queen h5 is laughable. I just kick them out. And yeah, it's happy days. Although I think the double piece sec now might yield the perpetual check, but I'm not even sure about that. And another way how I would consider playing this now is actually f5. Because after on pass on knight takes back defense the mate and hits the queen. And yeah, it's becoming more and more obvious that this king is going to be very soon the target and not this one down here. So queen drops back to h3, knight f5, I block this off. Black has got a spectacular position. So that's what I would have done. He chose to go for h6. Typical panic reaction that always does more damage than like if he had done this. Right? Because h6 basically invites g5. Very, very typical mistake of the amateur player and the amateur scene, that they feel threatened and then they go like, okay, I need to stop that. Well, guess what? It doesn't stop g5, it encourages it. And whilst g5 right now might not be correct due to some tactical reasons such as takes, and then knight takes e5, and now that is hanging and I can't retake because queen e5 is going to win the lot. But after h4, as per played in the game, now g5 is 10 times stronger as a threat than here. So h6 basically caused a lot of damage to black's position and gained nothing whatsoever. None whatsoever. Alright, h4, knight takes e5. I don't mind this move because we are steering towards some complications that I do like for black. Because now the situation is becoming very, very desperate, and desperate situations call for desperate measures, and that's the beginning of it. So I can't just sit around here much longer and wait for white to storm the barricades because we have nothing to fight back with. So I quite liked actually black's choice here of takes and knight e7, already hinting a sacrifice on e5. I quite like it. Also, we are threatening, probably more so than the sack, to play f6 and crack this whole position open onto the black king. I would like to emphasize once again that you have to be very, very careful with these attacks, because imagine it was black to move in this position. After f6, it's crystal clear that it's actually black who is on the attack and who is going to win this game in very few moves, rather than white. Because he just got caught with his pens down right in the middle of the board, and after takes I'm already coming in with a queen check and rapid mate to follow. If they don't take, I take here and the center collapse, the diagonals open, the files open, dead. The only reason why that was not a game over is because it's white to move, and he immediately plugged that f6 in, very correctly by the way, playing g5. Good stuff. And here, credit to black, brilliant stuff. He immediately went like, no, I can't bear this anymore, I have to counter strike. Very, very good thinking here. You can't sit anymore here waiting for the guillotine to chop precious body parts off. We need to go for it. And technically it's not sound because we are only gaining 2 pawns, but that doesn't matter. What matters here is that the balance swings. The initiative has been on white's side for the first 15 moves, and now all of a sudden it's gone. And losing the initiative is a very, very big issue. Very good players, even grandmasters, tend to struggle with this, because although technically the position is more winning for white than it ever has been, now we don't have the attack, and it's a psychological mindset, a psychological shift that a lot of players can't readjust to, because all of a sudden, that's it. The attack is gone, and black has got 3 rather nasty pawns coming at us. Now the reality of it is that with a few calm moves, white is going to be totally winning here. But once again, no attack, no black king in danger, no spectacular checkmates. It takes a lot of mental strength to adjust to it consciously and be aware of the fact that, okay, now I need to neutralize a few threats because I can ride that 1 and then the 0 on the score sheet. And white really messed it up, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. Knight f3, f6. Potentially bishop d6 could have been more accurate. Same idea e5, because after f6 actually bishop g6 would have netted another pawn, and that's pretty much resignation there. And here, that's a very typical example of what went wrong here for white. White still thought that he was attacking the black king. La la land, never gonna happen. No queens on the board means that hardly ever do you get to attack the king, and even if you do, it's not as a result of a direct attack, but more importantly, very often in endgames it just happens to be the case that the piece is just stirred away from the king, and so sometimes it finds itself alone, which is a problem in an open board. But now surrounded by pawns and pieces, it can't be attacked. Like, this pawn is more of a weakness than anything else. e5, very well played. Bishop c2. It was a must because e4 was threatened, but actually bishop c2 is a very clever move to prepare for bishop b3. Bishop g4, contrary to what it may look like, actually inaccurate, because d5 is a constant issue, and probably bishop e6 would have been more accurate to already prepare for bishop b3. Bishop g4, king f2, brilliant, and typical mistake again, and this is very commonplace in amateur chess. People tend to be very impulsive. They feel like they have to do something. And endgames are very often the exact opposite. What black needs to do here is to recognize that he can't do damage to white anymore, but he also needs to recognize that neither can white do any serious damage to white. So very often the best policy, and one of the hardest to do in endgames, is to say, alright, how will you beat me? So instead of me being silly and playing moves like e4, What will you do if I put my rook here? I'll put the other rook here. I'll put this bishop here. And I'll bring my king to the center like I should. How will you break up this beautiful mass of pawns? And the answer is that with major difficulties. But this is really a high level of thinking in chess, because doing nothing is very hard, not only because it's illegal, because you must make moves at all times, but because of it's a concept that is very hard to grasp, because we always want to do something like, oh yeah, that's weak, let's target it, or let's just chase this knight away because that looks cool. Recognizing that this pawn structure actually is best as it is right now takes a lot of experience. And here I would like to quote my good friend Nimzovich and his best book ever, My System. Rigid pawns, when they get blockaded by pieces, that's the beginning of the end. And now these pawns are not going anywhere anymore. The bishop is coming out to e3, and disaster has struck already. Bishop c5, rather meaningful, but meaningless, sorry. But f5 would have been successfully met by bishop f4, and once again, look at this. These pawns are now all ridiculously weak, and they can't move. Compare that to this pawn structure. I can't target any of them other than d5, but I will be able to fix it up. And the rest of them is mobile, and they can't be blockaded. Okay, so bishop e3, bishop takes, horrendous move. Absolutely unexplainable mistake, because the two bishops always represent great value. And in this pawn structure, having the pawns blockaded on white, the black bishop that is on g4 is a really bad bishop. It's another concept that people for some reason can't grasp, despite of being so simple. All you need to look at is, on what color are my pawns fixed, unable to move? So this one doesn't matter. These two don't really matter, although they can be fixed in just one more move. But these are 100% blockaded and can't go anywhere on white. Makes this bishop really good because it can maneuver in between or among these pawns whichever way you want to go, whereas this one is always going to bite into his own pawns and thereby restricting their diagonal. So this is, yeah, really bad story here. f5, bishop d1. Ultimate sign of panic. Every time you go back, you should never do that. Now here, I found the solution to this problem, which I think is very clever and probably a bit too much to expect from a club player, but I want you to understand the concept. There are two problems here that I'm seeing for white now, and I will flip the board around for a second so that we can imagine that we are in, so we can analyze the position regardless of which side we take or what we do. We basically analyze the game, so we should always pretend that now we are white, now we are black, and so on. So here I am sitting as white, thinking, all right, this is gonna die in a matter of seconds. So I play bishop b3, they guard it, and then, oh snap, d1 is covered. I can't attack this pawn anymore. So then I realized that, oh, okay, so f4 is coming in, and then I'm beginning to feel like, this is not looking good. So what should we do instead? How could I neutralize this mess? Well, here is a trick. Bishop b6 is an incredibly clever move here because it forces the rook to move, but I can't go sideways because that drops d5, and I can't go up to d6 because that allows a skewer on the two rooks. So rook d7 is forced, and here comes the sheer genius of the business. If you look at the white pieces now, and I ask you which one are the worst pieces for white, definitely the two rooks. They're both totally useless. Yeah? Which one is the best piece for black? Bishop on g4. I hate to say this because this bishop is their bad bishop, now having 4 pawns, minus those 2, so in reality 6, on its color. But with the aid of this pawn rolling forward and covering that d1 square, this bishop is really a jolly joker. So hang on, I just said this is their best, this is my worst. Isn't that the best trade I could ever take then? Oh, but that's an exchange. Who cares? We are a piece up. Let's have a look at what happens. Swap, swap. Oh, hang on. They can't defend d5. Alright, so let's see what happens. If they push after rook takes d5, rook takes d5, bishop check, this drops, game over. So they can't push that one. Well, let's see what happens if they play a move like rook f5. That looks very annoying because it hits the bishop as well as the pawn. Check. Oh, sorry, not check, but it will be checked soon. Now the rook must take, otherwise my rook is going to fire a double check and that's going to be deadly. So it's a forced capture. Bang, check. King here. No one would want to go to the corner. Checky. King here. Checky. King wherevs. Bishop d4. And the game is over. The rook has to go. And wherever it goes, I take the pawn on g7. And no one can stop that pawn from promoting. So, when you are ahead in material, and you are struggling to convert it because despite of being ahead in material, you seem to have limited space for your pieces and your opponent seems to have an annoying threat and annoying pressure, almost always the best way to get out of such situations and convert the fastest win is to give back some material in order to regain initiative. So now all of a sudden, all of my pieces are dominating the board. And I'm attacking everything with all my might. I'm covering d8 so he can't go behind. And this initiative is going to win the game in a blink of an eye. Two bishops on an open board are unstoppable force. It would have been a very, very beautiful way to finish. And in fact, even the computer doesn't understand it at first. So when you feed this into one of the best machines that you currently can play with, the immediate recommendation is not going to be rook d1. And as soon as you feed the move into them, and you wait for a couple of 10 to 20, 30 seconds, it will recognize its strengths gradually, and it will come up as one of their #1 choice in this position. But more importantly, because you're not computers, and I definitely don't want any of my students to think like computers, it's the human solution to the problem, because I don't like my opponent having threats. I don't like my opponent covering that and being annoying with this bishop, coming here, going there. I also don't like that I can't attack anything. I want to be the aggressor, and so I am, and I play rook d1. Now instead, in the game, bishop d1 was played, which is really like, I would have really loved to ask you, the white player, what exactly are you doing there, dude? Because the only thing that I can imagine bishop d1 is doing is that it wants to take here. Yeah? But hold on a second, let's just play something, anything. Bishop takes, isn't that allowing f takes back, king wherevs, I don't know, and rook f3 penetrating? How does it make sense? Rook f1 and I don't even have to respond. I can just come up here and take that. I will never ever take, and neither can you force me to take because the white square bishop is gone. So you take, I straighten my pawns, and then I take this. And all of a sudden, I'm really worried for white. Because now this is a ton of pawns. And it's not an easy fix, even though these are blockaded, so that's at least a sigh of relief. And so are these two, because if these two were mobile, then it would be a world of hurt. I think it's still winnable for white, but the whole entire plan is just horrid. Again, a typical example of self-inflicted damage. Like, coming here and taking here makes the position far worse than going here and then going back regardless of what black does next. I kid you not. Typical example of immature chess, no offense meant. People on this level, more often than not, tend to hurt themselves more than their opponent. So very often people lose on this level, and we're talking about 1900 for the record, by actually doing self-harm rather than waiting for their opponent to outplay them. f4, horrid mistake, and I hate to say this because it looks very logical, and sadly now white's whole concept gets justified and every part of me just dislikes it because it's yeah, just not right based on how things went in this game. Bishop takes, pawn takes, and h5, and now this does create an unstoppable mate threat by h6, rook takes, and rook h8. And this is an extremely rare case, when with this limited material we can conduct an attack as if there were queens on the board that will end in an unstoppable mate. This is like 1 in 1,000. Yet, that's the case no matter what I do. H6 takes rook H6 and then rook H8 mate is basically unstoppable for the rest of the game. And yet, this is not what happened. So let's see. Rook F8, obviously already planning about finding an escaping route. H6, perfect chess. E3, King G2, perfect. Takes, rook takes, black resigned. Oh no, they didn't. They should have and could have, but they didn't. And thank God they didn't, because I don't want to ruin the party for you. King F8, and this is the ultimate moment when you just stop, because you go like, hang on, I must be winning here. Like, why? There's no way that white is not winning here by force. The only reason why we can't give a mate here is because the king is about to escape there, but other than that, all the squares around the king are going to be covered. So all I need to do is to play this move, and rook mate is totally unstoppable. Like, this is it, GG. The game's over. And instead white played this. Tactical blunder, it does happen. If you were my student and you did this, it would hurt me, but I'm always more forgiving towards tactical blunders than colossal, strategical, unexplainable errors. Okay, G7, perfectly fine. King F7, and this is the point in the game where white went like, oh, god dang it, how will I win now? I can't promote the pawn and these pawns are coming at me. Panic. And panic ruins everything. It's a very straightforward and not even too complicated win for white here after something like rook F1, F3, king up, and the pawns are going to drop one by one. It's quite simple, really. King takes G4 is the threat. If E2, you just drop back. Because here is what people think, or rather not think here. Oh my god, the pawns are coming further down and down. What they should think is that when that happens, the pawns become rigid. It doesn't matter how far forward they are if they can't move. There's no value in this pawn on E2 now and his body on F3 if they can't be further pushed. A pass pawn loses all its value, essentially, especially in endgame, if it can't be pushed. And now there's nothing to be done against king takes, and rook takes. Literally nothing. That's it. Do they look intimidating? Yeah, I guess for 1.7 seconds they do. And then you realize that they can't do a thing, and that they just really walk like sheep to the slaughter. Bang, 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 gone. And you might ask, yeah, but there are tactics here, like here, and then F2, and then after bishop takes, we can take on here. Yeah, true that. So when you play rook G8, I would take rook G8, king here, F2, rook takes, king F3, I'm taking this, and I'm a piece up. Game over. I didn't need that G7 pawn to win the game, thank you very much. I'm very happy to win them with these. So that's it. Now, once again, I'm pretty sure panic kicked in here and white played rook H1. For the record, threatens with nothing at all, because even after rook E8 and then rook H8 again, black can go to G8 with his remaining rook, and then the pawn is not going anywhere. So essentially, this is a pass move. E2 was played, bishop F2, not bad. I don't know if it was strictly necessary, but say okay, king took, and again white goes like, dang it, I lost my best pawn and these guys are still here, I stuffed this up, now I'm losing. Nah. On the contrary, white has got a forced win here, not easy. When under pressure, I will give that to you, but let's think logically. These two rooks on the h file represent quite a bit of value. There are lots of checks in them that can be very annoying, and more importantly, they can attack these loose pawns. And guess what? They are all dead again. This is all it took. Just a calm rook retreat, recognizing that now the rook on h8 was pointless to have. Swap on e8 wouldn't help at all, because that would activate the only badly placed black piece. And yeah, so come back. And it's so easy. Pawn push, check, check, and bishop takes, and this drops in 2 more moves. That's it, the game is over. Or f3 check, king g3, thank you very much. And we have already seen this. Rigid pawns, blockaded beautifully in the dark squares. Every single one of them are going to be taken in the next 3 to 5 moves. The game is over. And it was indeed over, but in a very different way. White took, rook e1, here, and rook e4. And now things are a little bit trickier. Rook e1 was a complete lemon, because instead bishop e1 still would have allowed white to play for rook e4, sorry, rook h4 as a winning plan. Like, this is an ultimate example when we are wasting a power of a rook on stopping a pawn, but we could have used that bishop. So now we have got a rook to play with, literally, and the position is still quite messy. Now it's quite complex on the other hand, because although I can still undo it and come here and then bishop back and then go up with the rook, it's still doable. But white hasn't shown any signs of being aware of what should go where. Like, these pawn pushes are not really making a difference. So white hasn't achieved a single thing by pushing these up here. On the other hand, black managed to liberate the rook from e4, because now the king is covering pawn g4. So now his plan is to go back, check, mate. Obviously it's not going to be a mate, because the bishop will move away, allowing the king to come back, but then the black king will further penetrate, and so will the rook, and eventually the pawns will start rock and rolling. Rook there, king e6. That's plan B, to bring the rook in, sorry, the king in via e4, c4. I'm not quite sure if this was correct. d4, cool. Yeah, given this blockade, I think that the position is still easily holdable, at least holdable for white. Take, yeah, check. I would have far preferred to play rook b6 and just keep the rook on the 6th. Once again, very basic endgame principle, or even here actually, and take this. Isn't that winning? Yeah, basic endgame principle. Keep your opponent's pieces at bay. Now they can't cross the 6th rank ever. Like, if I don't do anything but pass, back and forth, pass, back and forth, this king is never going to be able to participate the action. This rook can't leave the 4th because the pawn drops. And if they come down here, then I can... okay, I might be in a bit of trouble then. Although technically, bishop f2, e1, queen, bishop takes, rook takes... Yeah, depending on where my rook is, that could be still drawable. But check. Once again, typical amateur mistake. Let's give a check. Purpose? None whatsoever. And now the king is onto a 5 at a square. Check again. Purpose? None whatsoever. Granted, black actually fell into rook b6 check, but if he had come this way, then basically we just forced the black king back to where it stood best. And even here, after rook here, I think we would have been in a world of hurt as white. King d3, king down, king c2, and now the king is going to d1. Very good play by black, threatening g3 check and taking the bishop. Outstanding stuff. Credit to him. Bishop c3. I love when my opponents play moves like this, because they don't seem to realize that this is not threatened. I can just come down here, thank you very much. He did move the rook, but it was more so because he wanted to remove the bishop from the diagonal. Check, back, bishop d2. Okay, this is getting here a little bit shaky. This is getting a little bit shaky. Rook d3 would have been a straightforward win on the spot. And once again, let's just discuss plans and objectives. We want to kick the bishop out. 2 ways to do it. Rook here, rook here. Which one allows a check that disturbs the setup? Because I need the king here so that I can penetrate. Well, this one allows a check, forcing my king to a worse square. Okay. What can white do after this? Resign. I'm threatening to take and promote the queen. Not stoppable. Bishop back, g3 check. King takes, and now I've got 2 queens. Game is over. So rook c4 was very poor, rook check good, back, bishop d2. This seems to be holding for the time being. Now rook e4, I want to show you this motif, it's actually quite cool. Nope, Rook e4 is threatening with check, and then check, and then causing trouble there. Although king f1 is still probably holdable, so never mind. King d1, I don't get that. Oh wow. And now finally black managed to get this set up where g3 check is going to hurt a great deal. I don't get why we are not going up though. But okay, bishop c3, rook d3. Now bishop b4 was of course the way to go because it still covers the e1 square. But by now I think the players got very short on time. So, and they fell for this. And now the faster pawns are going to decide. Check, queen, and there was nothing left in the game but a handshake. Who would have thought that from this position, literally with mate in 3, black would win this game? Remember when I told you about self-harm? It needs to be done. Because if you play just moves that are good enough, it's normally good enough to win. But self-harm is our biggest enemy, and we really need to get that out of the way. And if we want to be very honest with ourselves, and I don't really want to say that people are really bad chess players and they should not do this, but the self-harm already started here. So at no stage did I feel that white actually outplayed black, and that led to this immediate mate or forced mate here. It was basically lots of mistakes, some small, some huge, on black's behalf that led to the fact that here a mate in 3 was doable. And yet it didn't happen. So I hope, guys, that you found value in this analysis. I will try to do more of these. I think I extended the end of it or stretched the end of it a little bit further than I should have. But hopefully there were lots of valuable motives and ideas along the way that will help you to become a better player. Please express your opinions, give me ideas, tell me what you think. I really appreciate all your inputs. So thanks all for watching it, and I will be back with more soon. Bye!